Bitcoin remains stable while gold is also still stable and silver is stable. Yeah, you can tell the US isn't really back yet, or rather, they're only really coming back today. But there's a bigger move coming from Japan. At the moment, at least USD JPY is making a deeper jump, or rather, it's looking relatively good. And there's also good news coming out of Japan, which of course is leading to the JPY being a bit stronger. We'll take a look at all of that. First of all, a wonderful good morning to everyone. Yeah, Bitcoin is still stable, and we'll take a calm look at everything. Before we get started, as always, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, feel free to join the free Telegram talk and Signal group as well. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, feel free to join. You'll find the link for it for free down in the video description. And as I said, you'll get all the info there. Even when I enter any trades or buy any spots again, for your own portfolio, you'll get all of that here. And if you're still looking for an exchange where you can trade all of this, you can do it all with my partner as well. You can do it all on the BingX exchange. At the moment, we have up to 11,500 USDT in bonuses that you can claim. And there are also some cool events going on where you can secure a few free bonuses as well. Also, a quick reminder, tonight at 7 p.m. there's another live stream. Also, for everyone who has created a new account, there are more trial funds to be won. So I'd say let's not waste any time. Bitcoin at 68,400 US dollars. And if you watched yesterday's video, or rather if you saw it, you'll remember that we talked exactly about what the plan for Bitcoin was yesterday. And that's exactly how it played out the first time. We went further down and basically filled this inefficiency here, plus of course the big green vector candle here at 67,200, or rather 67,300 US dollars were picked up here for the first time. And from here it moved up for the first time. At least that's something. There was a small upward impulse, at least at the peak. During the Tokyo session, or rather the Asia session, it went up to 69,200 US dollars. So a good move for now, especially for those who entered down here as a precaution. At the peak, it was 2.8%. Now it's only 1.6%, but please try to take profits relatively early on such moves, because as I said, the US is only coming back today and the futures are not looking good again. Not exactly rosy. S&P 500, NASDAQ futures decline ahead of the US return. Why is that? Because the geopolitical uncertainties are still there. Between Iran and the US, there really isn't any lasting calm, you have to say. Traders are watching events between the US and Iran, with the latest recent drills just doing enough to dull any signs of risk appetite. And of course, there's also the whole topic of AI, for example, Goldman's AI-proof software basket source amid the sell-off. This is the long-short software basket, and down here you can see essentially the software index from the S&P 500. That's the gray one. You can also see basically a major sell-off there. So software and AI aren't necessarily the best at the moment, and at the same time we're seeing positive signals from Japan, because Japan is actually also a safe haven, or rather the yen. And there we can clearly see that, especially, where was it? The 5-year bonds were in very, very high demand. And then possibly the chance of another rate hike by Japan is now only about 65% here in April. Last Friday, it was still 73%. Nevertheless, I still continue to assume that we will get a rate hike there. Not before April, but then I think at the latest in April. We'll take a look at the Forex stuff in just a moment. The Forex topics. As I said, Bitcoin is still in no man's land at the moment, to be honest. That's just a small trade, as I said, just took it along. Otherwise, if we look at the heat map, there's still liquidity above us at around 71,300 US dollars. Below us, as I said, still at 62,000 and at 55,000. There's a lot of volume and liquidity in US dollars there. Let's take a closer look specifically at the order book there. In the end, we don't really see much either, so it really doesn't matter where, does it? I think, yes, it's also a holiday in China today, as far as I know. I don't want to say anything wrong, but I think there's not much going on there either. But you can see it everywhere that nothing is happening, or rather that because of the holiday, the exchange is closed, etc., and so on. There's also very, very little happening in the order book. So hardly any buying, at most around 10, maybe 20 million in sell-offs. Yesterday, during those smaller dumps, it was a bit more for a while. There were times when 30 or 40 million were dumped, but that's not a lot, especially when we see massive sell-offs over hours here, or rather spot sell-offs. So what's coming in at the moment really isn't much. That means the market now has to make up its mind soon. You might remember this was the scenario we talked about yesterday. that we discussed. Either we drop straight through or we fill this vector here and have to get above the Asia range, which is currently at 69,000 US dollars. And that would be this yellow scenario I've drawn here, which is also from yesterday for those who remember from the video, that in the end we would still get the drawdown to the downside here. That clearly depends on the US. As I said, gold and silver are still relatively calm, so nothing has changed there at this point. We have to wait and see what the US does. Are there any new news coming out? And that's exactly the problem. At the moment, the markets are really driven by news, by sentiment, or rather by risk-off sentiment. And as soon as some strange news comes out, things head down again. I said in the video yesterday that especially this week, we actually don't have any real news at all. That's how it is. It's very, very quiet, to be honest. So even today, not much is really happening. Most of it will happen on Friday. That actually means the markets would really have some time and breathing room until Thursday or maybe even Friday afternoon to possibly rise until we get the significant news again. If that doesn't happen, I have to honestly say I'm still more on the bearish side. Let's move over to Ethereum. What's been happening there? Nothing here either. Absolutely nothing is happening here at the moment either. No trades planned at the moment, nothing at all in terms of altcoins, because as I said, the volume is missing, the volatility is missing, everything is just missing here right now. Solana, same story, also zero volatility, no significant moves. Interest rates staying higher for longer probably also plays a bit of a role here. Let's move over to the Forex sector. US dollar, yes, slightly, the euro is slightly down against the US dollar. And USD JPY is now slowly starting to make its next move downward again. Since the JPY can, of course, benefit a bit now, given the overall sentiment after the bond sales went very, very well over there, at least the 5-year ones, we're seeing a solid push upward here. Now, it's important that we break the high here at 0.0065, because then our short trade, which we still have open here, can continue to accumulate in the end. That would mean that we fall below 152 here and then take the next step down toward 147. And then I would mostly close the trade because I think, okay, that could also lead to the carry trader slowly starting to unwind a bit. So at that point, we would just take the profits. And as for the US markets, we'll just have to see what happens. Gold, a bit of a smaller move. Silver, same story, but nothing really spectacular. It's been stuck in a bit of a range the whole time. Again, as soon as any news comes out, whether negative or positive, it will of course have a direct impact. Otherwise, as I said, things are pretty quiet this week. But you also have to say, even if you take a look at the volume here, gold is significantly lower, and silver too, the volume has just disappeared. The whole market kind of reminds me of the Christmas period last year when there was absolutely zero volatility left. Let's move on to the DAX. Not much happening there either. The short is still running, so we can basically skip over it as well. The Dow Jones is seeing a slight pullback. That's what I meant when I said that the US futures are back in the red for now. But that doesn't mean anything. What's important, or at least what's important to me right now, or what I'd be interested in, is if we could finally get a lower low here. Because we've kept seeing these sell-offs, one day down, then a recovery the next morning, then down again, and then another recovery. So we've just been stuck in this range the whole time. And of course, this could drag on for another week. It's the same story with the S&P 500. It's always the same thing, but yeah, the pumps are just getting weaker. We're not even managing to hit those all-time highs anymore. So as soon as I'll just quickly remove the fractal here. As soon as we actually get a lower low here, meaning we break this range, things could head straight down. And then really, really fast, which is what I would hope for, so that the short can finally deliver some big profits. Otherwise, the Russell isn't making any real moves to the upside either. So that's over for now as well. And last but not least, the volatility index, the VIX. An important point, in my opinion, is that there's currently very, very little movement here. In what way is there little movement? Simply that things are slowly but surely, because the VIX, after all, you have to think of it this way, is ultimately intended for hedge positions. That means when the VIX rises, a hedge position is opened slowly but surely. If it rises sharply, then most of those positions are closed again in order to ultimately reverse the move. And usually when we've seen a big peak, just like in the past, those were often good opportunities to buy stocks again. What I don't really like here is that we've been rising for days, or to be honest, even weeks now. Slowly but surely, hedge positions are being built up here. But you can also kind of relate that to the NASDAQ or even the S&P 500, where we've only been seeing slight moves for weeks. That means hedge positions are being bought up, and at the same time, we see that retail is buying a huge amount of stocks and shares. Maybe you remember the live stream from Sunday. We'll definitely take another look at it tonight. Then the whole topic makes a bit more sense. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet. Out of this whole mess, as I said, it could still drag on until Nvidia possibly, even though Nvidia was also in the red again yesterday, at least as far as the futures are concerned. Yeah, otherwise I'd say it's a calm update, not really much to discuss, but that's the most important part. Take profits on Bitcoin. My short is still running, my long is still running, so not much has really changed. I'm still staying away from altcoins. And otherwise, I'd say we'll hear from each other again tonight in the live stream, 7 p.m. YouTube, Kick, and Twitch. I'd be happy if you joined. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful, relaxing day. Take care of yourselves. And then we'll catch up again this evening. Until then, ciao, ciao. And as always, stay crypt.